Hey Mosaic, I'm Elise. I'm 21 and I'm from Philippines. I'm currently studying communications at MUN, and I just wanted to let you guys know how I've been crushing COVID. So I've been quarantining here in St. John's. I've just been hanging out with my roommates and hanging out with my fiance Nick when I get the chance to. And it has definitely been a little stressful because, I'm so far away from family and I don't really have an option to go back and see them. But at the same time, it's been a great time to reset. I've been playing a lot of Animal Crossing. It's kind of embarrassing. I've also been getting into things I used to love, like graphic design and calligraphy and taking videos and pictures, so that's been really fun as well. And I think I just really appreciate having this time to reset and slow down for a minute because everything's so busy and you're just always on the go. Don't really have time to reflect on the little things in life. So I've been really liking that. But I have gone back to work. So if you're ever at the mall, come visit me at Sports Experts. Yay, fun times. Anyways, yeah, I'm definitely excited to go back to Mosaic when we get the chance to. I definitely miss being around people, being able to interact in person. Really thankful for technology like Zoom calls and stuff, but really want to see everyone again. And I really miss hearing Steve say, "Peace on your melon," after every sermon. I miss that a lot. Anyways, hope to see you guys soon. Bye!
it all go. I see it now, I'm laying it down, and I know that I need you. I'll run to the Father, fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend, so I run to the Father again. A surgeon, soul needs a friend, so I run to the Father again and again and again and again.
Welcome everybody to Mosaic at Home. We're just so excited that you've decided to join us tonight. If this is your first time taking in our stream, we would love to get to know you more. So please reach out to us through Facebook, Instagram, or our email, mosaiccampuschurch@gmail.com, just to start a conversation, getting to know you more, and maybe let you know a little bit more about what Mosaic's about. So please feel free to reach out through any of those avenues. My name is Steve Grimes. I get the amazing honor and privilege to be the pastor at Mosaic Campus Church. And I just got a few announcements to send to you just to make note of this week as we head into a new week before we continue on in our stream. The first thing I want you to know about is on Wednesday night, in keeping with the social gatherings that we've been doing, we're having another Instagram Live worship night. These have been awesome times to just put pause on the craziness of life and everything that's going on and just spend some time worshiping together as a community and as a family together. And so we would love for you to be a part of that. It's so easy to join. You just go to our Instagram page at Mosaic Campus Church at 7:30 on Wednesday night, this Wednesday night coming, and you can be a part of that. So please make note of that for this week. As well, on Thursday night, what we've been doing for the past number of weeks is we've been hosting a Zoom room to serve as a study group. And so for many of those who are studying this spring, summer, or maybe you're still working from home and trying to get some work done, and you're looking for this kind of space to do it with friends and community and some accountability together, we've set up this Zoom room for you to do that on Thursday nights at 7:30. And so all you do is go to the link bit.ly/MCC study group, and you can sign up for that and be a part of that on Thursday night. As well, tonight, right after our stream, as we've been doing for a number of weeks now, we're going to have our Mosaic After Party Zoom chats. This is a time just to digest the content together, ask some questions, to reconnect with each other after a week of events or whatever that's been going on, or maybe just sitting on your couch because COVID life. So we would love for you to be a part of that, our Mosaic After Party Zoom chats. And all you do is go to the link bit.ly/MCC After Party, and right away, as soon as the stream is done, we'll send you a link so that you can join in on that Zoom room. So please make sure you're a part of that, especially for our conversation that we're going to be having tonight in this stream. As well, we are super excited to be launching our very own Mosaic Campus Church podcast, and you can get connected to this through Apple Podcasts or Spotify as well. All you do is search Mosaic Campus Church, and what you'll see on there now is basically abbreviations of a few streams that we've done in the Sunday nights in the past few weeks. And so maybe you're someone who haven't been able to take in some of the streams on Sunday nights, but you'd like to take in some of the content. You can head to those podcasts and you can listen to it while you're driving or doing a workout, maybe whatever it is that you're doing, and be a part of that and take in some of the great content that we've had over the past few weeks. So make sure you sign up for that. If you're someone who isn't into podcasts a whole lot, maybe this can be a way to kind of introduce you to the podcast world. It's an awesome world to be a part of. So make sure you go to that Apple Podcasts or Spotify, look at or search up Mosaic Campus Church, subscribe to the channel, give us a nice 5-star rating, and please just take in all the good content that's there. We'll also have some new content that will load to that later on. So we're really excited about that. Share with friends, maybe someone who isn't watching tonight, and make sure they can be a part of that. Like I said, we have an awesome conversation coming up tonight. This is part 2 of a 2-part talk that we've been having on racism, the injustice in our world, and how we as individuals in the church can be advocates in this time. And so last week we had a really great conversation with 3 of my friends, Chris, Kareem, and Adam. And so tonight they're coming back and we're going to have part 2 of this conversation where we talk about how culture is whitewashed. We have an honest conversation about the fear of asking the wrong questions surrounding this topic. And we talk about how we as individuals in the church can be supportive and advocates in this time. And so take this in, take notes, and then right as soon as this conversation is done, we'll come back and close off our stream together. In case everybody watching doesn't know you guys, we have Chris Chase, who many would know. Chris has actually spoken at Mosaic before. We've had him on the stream already this summer. We have Adam Hoskins, who was a part of our worship stream that we did a few weeks ago as well. And then we have Kareem, who is such a good friend, a good buddy, who is so full of wisdom, and that I'm really thankful for. Can you give a bit of a recap of what's kind of been unfolding and happening in the recent weeks?
And what we're seeing is the minority community push back on things like universal health care. There's a lack of universal health care in the States, starvation wages, mass incarceration, a long history of police brutality, a lack of opportunities. There's racist politicians. There's a racist justice system. People talk about reparations and also no access to affordable education. So George Floyd is simply just a bit of the vehicle in which we are saying enough is enough. Like, if you don't see it now, you may never see it, and we need you to see it. And so this is why you've seen so many protests all over the nation of the U.S. You're seeing 13 different countries also ride along, Canada included.
And so I want to talk to you guys too about culture as a whole. And I mean, we can probably all agree that culture as a whole is very whitewashed. Um, but there's this other side to it too, that this culture like enjoys and appreciates other cultures, black culture, people of color. And when it comes to music, food, and all these things, yet when we obviously look at culture as a whole, it has this whitewash look or feel to it. And so this makes it twice as hard for a black person or person of color to kind of get ahead or to meet goals or to succeed. And so can you explain what this means, what whitewash culture means, and what that kind of what the effects it has on someone?
So here's a so back in the '80s, I'm old enough to remember this group by the name of New Edition that came out of Boston, Massachusetts, or the Massachusetts area. They were one of the most popular boy bands of all time.
Hmm.
And they were so popular that somebody said, you know what, we need to make a white version of this group. That group's name was New Kids on the Block. And New Kids on the Block was pretty well what New Edition was, but to white America. And the popularity of New Edition only stayed within the black community. And the same concept that created that group was made for white America, and that was one of the most popular boy bands of all time. If you know New Edition, it's because you're down for the cause, you're down with the culture. But if you know New Kids on the Block, it's because it permeated culture. We see that in music all the time. We see that on TikTok. A black girl will create a dance called the Renegade, but it becomes popular when two white girls decide to do it on their TikTok, and they're the ones getting the press, getting to meet celebrities and everything like this, all sort of stuff. While this 15-year-old black girl who created the dance just out of her own creativity is left in the dust. It very much, and guys, I'll speak for myself. We are mined for the best of us, and we are marketed. The best of us is mined and marketed, and then we are pushed aside while somebody kind of takes credit for the great things that we've done. So Chuck Berry creates rock and roll.
Yeah.
When we think of rock and roll, we think of Elvis Presley. We don't think of Chuck Berry, the actual inventor of it. Talent aside, there were a lot of black hip hop artists before Marshall Mathers picked up a microphone. He, in fact, is inspired by people like LL Cool J. But the most highest selling rap artist and one of the most high selling artists of all time is Marshall Mathers, aka Eminem. He would recognize that he has benefited from black culture, but the people buying that don't know that. They're looking for somebody who they can identify with. In fact, it was Justin Bieber. I think it was this past week who put out an Instagram post saying, "I have gained everything that I have from black culture. My style, my mannerism, my music, everything that I am is because of black culture, and it's up to me now to give back to the culture that has given so much to me." To be whitewashed is it'd be one thing to be forgotten. It's a whole other thing when you can actually see your culture being manipulated right before your eyes, and there's nothing that you can do about it besides kind of create your own award show, which is actually better than the Grammys, by the way, the BET Awards.
Yeah, so I agree that culture is whitewashed. We understand that the powers that be has always kind of been white culture, colonization.
Just culture. It's not
Culture
white
as a
culture,
whole.
just culture.
Culture as a whole is white white dominated in terms of the powers that be, who controls all that happens. Now, in terms of the things that are being appreciated, a lot of it, yes, comes from black culture in terms of like media stuff, or at least music and create like dance and all that. A lot of it is comes from the black culture. But in terms of why that happens, I think because of the oppression that black culture faces, it leads to creativity. Because you don't have as much as others, you need to find different ways to express yourself creatively. And so white individuals who have the power, they begin to recognize that. And so really and truly, I often say is that yes, we may not have slavery, but there's a lot of different things where the slave mentality still exists, and one of that is in the music industry. So they see, okay, we have these individuals. Let's see how we can now take these individuals, make as much money off of these individuals as possible. And then even when we let them make their money, and then what we're also going to do is we're going to take it away from them fully and place it on somebody who we really want to identify, of who is of our heritage, our race, to now take this and now take it to the next level. And so culture will allow us to have to express ourselves and to have a platform to express ourselves. But what I will say is that it's we're slowly seeing change. I'm not going to say that there hasn't been change in that, but what I will say is they don't allow us to then get to the highest levels within those industries. It's still always a lot of times white dominated, in terms of the people that are at the highest levels within the media industry, music industry as a whole, that allows these things to happen. So it's definitely, yes, white, again, like I said, white dominated, but I think the powers that be that are white recognize that they can capitalize off of the creativity of the black culture.
And not only that, like the NFL has 4 black coaches.
We're not going to go there. Oh my goodness!
In a league that is 70% white. When a black coach, we have this episode. I don't even know. Has this segment even come out yet about the Rooney Rule? I think we were going to release it, and then the whole world went to garbage, and so we had to kind of hold off it. So that might be a summer release at some point. But we talked about that in one of our segments about how like in this league that has mined and destroyed black bodies and made so much money. You look at the NCAA and the college
you can't go there.
The college basketball, and how these young men up until 2022 have never gotten any payment for their likeness, and these schools make billions. It's a
$1 billion industry.
And these kids, if they borrow money from a friend,
for $10
just for food, they can lose their scholarship. They can have their school records taken away, all that sort of stuff. And yeah, we're gonna mine you for your talent, so you can make millions of dollars. And coaches can make millions and millions of dollars per year, and these kids can't even get money for a Happy Meal. And it's something that it's something that it happens all the time. And then what ends up happening is that we end up infighting against each other because we're trying to get to these spots, and we get pitted up against each other. And it's literally like the scene in The Dark Knight where the Joker breaks the pool cue and he throws it between the 3 guys and goes, "Well, have at it." That's what ends up happening in our community, which is why our show, the House of Common Show, which you can subscribe to on YouTube, please leave a comment, please leave a like, and subscribe to the channel, or subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts.
You did that so well, bro. That was so good, Chase.
Dude,
You've been practicing.
Every time gets better.
That was good.
Ready?
That was so good.
In the chamber all the time. Like, we are 10 guys who, by society's aspects, we should be pitted up against each other, and we were like, no, like, we're in this together, and it's a beautiful balance of give and take. We're all 10 alphas who say, for the betterment of the house, we're going to lend our talents here, there, and everywhere, because that belongs to us, and we won't allow that to be taken away from us. And most people, they don't get the opportunity to do that, which is why you see a lot of independent rap musicians now, independent, not signing any masters, so they can actually own something.
Have control and not be a part of that system that again is very slave mentality driven.
I agree with you guys, and I think that some of it has transitioned from the slave mentality to now to marketability. And the reality is that the standard of success and excellence in North America is white. And when I say that, I mean when you see beauty ads, the beauty models that are considered beautiful are white, slender, long hair, whatever it is and stuff. Like these are the standards. And so a lot of I I I don't want to pit everything on racism, but we do have a system in which our standards for excellence, for beauty, for things that are pleasing and things that are good, come from white culture. It's something that we've inherited and that we live in right now. And this is why you have so many black, like it pains me when I see black girls wearing weave that look like,
Yeah.
it looks like
Oh
white
my
people's
goodness, I
hair.
have no clue.
It's like your hair was never meant, your hair curls and your hair, you know what I mean? Your hair is strong and your hair is resilient. It doesn't need to be straightened and permed out to look like a white person's hair or whatnot. You know what I mean? So I like, that's a whole rabbit trail to go down. But I think when you look at whitewashed culture, the part of the effects that it have is that it trickles into everything. So part of the reason why Eminem is such a influential rapper is because you have a whole bunch of white kids that are out there who enjoy rap music but who don't see someone that they have, and you have millions of kids, you have millions of millions of people that are potential fan base who say, sure, but it's still black, and black is not as good as white. And so when Eminem comes on the scene and he rocks it, I'm not taking anything away from
Really
his talent.
talented. Yeah.
Super talented guy, but when he goes in and he rocks it, they're saying, "Oh yeah, we can validate this because not only
Yeah.
is he super talented, but he's also white. So which means he must be good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It must be something that is great and that is excellent and that is beautiful and all these things that we associate. When we talk about whitewash culture, it's because the things that we find pleasing, we find good, we've inherited a mindset and a perspective that they come from white people.
That was so good, Adam.
Oof.
Yeah.
That's why he is the founder and
Yes.
CEO and the deep visionary
Yes.
that is
Yo.
the House of Common.
Chill.
But-
If you are not following, please
yeah.
follow.
Exactly.
On YouTube, just type in the search the House of Common Show. You will find us. You can also go on Instagram and type in the House of Common. Please,
Won't he will.
if you're not subscribing, please subscribe, like, and
Won't he do
share our videos.
Won't he do it? Yes, he will. Come on.
Mm.
Oh, I just felt him. I felt him. Oh, yeah.
Oh man.
This is our group chat come to life for you. Just
Yeah.
imagine there are 8 other guys on this group chat. So
I
imagine.
know. I'm gonna have major FOMO every time you guys put out a video now. Just going back to this, Chris. I watched you have a conversation. I don't know. You've spoken. You're like celebrity pastor in Canada right now. I've seen you in so many
The
churches.
Chris
Yep.
Chase.
It's stupid. Listen, it's stupid.
But one of the churches that you spoke in that had a conversation, you talked about how, we're all in this race, and we all have the goal of getting to the finish line, but the finish line is on a slant. And for some people, they're at on the side of the race where the finish line is slanted, and so they have to work twice as hard, put in twice the amount of effort to get to the same goal as somebody who the finish line is closer.
Yeah, like that's something that we learned. Like, I can speak for myself, but I think I can speak for the guys too. Like, we all learned. Your parents said you have to work twice as hard to get just as far, and if you make a mistake, you're twice as further back. And it really is. It's like the finish line is more like on an angle. And there's some people who start at the bottom and say, I'm done. And there's others of us who have to run a couple more steps, put a couple more steps on the Apple Watch to finally get there. And while we're running, there are hurdles that we have to jump over. The hurdle of how you dress, the hurdle of how you present yourself, the hurdle of how you speak, the hurdle of the hurdle of not selling out your culture while getting ahead, the hurdle of being a good father, because the myth is that black men are not good fathers, which actually statistically is not the case. We're actually by study some of the best fathers out of all of the races in terms of how we treat our kids, like we are. But all these things and all these myths and all these stats, and we have to jump over every hurdle, every time. And sometimes what it feels like is as you're running, you're noticing like, and you don't know if it's depth perception, but the finish line starts to move further back.
Mhm.
And the reason why it's running further back is because somebody might have tripped before you, and so like, oh, like I'll use like we talk about all the time. If we fail in our personal lives, we actually make it harder for the rest of us to make it ahead. If we fail, we make it harder for the generation of black kids coming behind us to make it, because they've now said, well, we can't trust any of them now, and they move the finish line a little bit further. And some people will say, hey, well, it's great, like we all get to run, and like a lot of times like you're running, like you're in the race, but what they don't understand is that it's easier. So we're part of we've been a part of the Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada. We're probably first generation pastors, right? We work in a denomination, in a fellowship, probably be the same thing in the PONL, where you are third or fourth generation in. Well, you're already further ahead than the rest of us who are one generation in, who don't have any connection, who are learning everything for the first time. Well, imagine that for the area of education. Imagine that for the area of commerce. Imagine that for the area of buying a house.
So for anyone who's watching this and they're taking this in, and they want to be someone who stands and supports, someone who wants to be educated, but there's this fear of asking the wrong question, saying the wrong thing, or even just adding to the whole issue. Is there any advice that you can give to the person?
I would say it's okay to be ignorant. And it's okay. Sorry, it's not okay to be ignorant. It's okay to sound ignorant in this time. And I think that a lot of minorities would appreciate you asking questions and evaluating your way of thinking through dialogue more than just coming out and emotionally, expressing things on behalf of the oppressor, if you will. Yeah, I think this is a really awesome and unique time for you to really find out who your black friends are or who your minority friends are. Not just, oh, I play basketball or soccer with that person and, we watch the same TV shows, but really find out what makes them unique, what makes them different, and share with them, how what makes you unique and different as well in some of your experiences. I just think this is such a unique opportunity and a time for us to grow and to learn from one another, that it would be a shame and a waste if all we were doing were spewing empty apologies and rhetoric of I'm so sorry, but we didn't actually take this time to know one another. Don't be afraid to ask the wrong question and stuff. I one of the things that let me like that opened me up to dialogue is that when I go in with an opinion, I literally tell myself, Adam, be prepared to have your mind changed. I think that's something that we've lost in the art of arguing is that like sometimes when we argue, we're just not willing to cross the river and to have our mind changed on some things. And so, in this, I know that we may have experience in these times, but I'm willing to have my mind changed. And I hope that the people that I dialogue with over social media and I dialogue with in person are willing to have their minds changed as well. We don't get anywhere if we each stand at odds with one another and just spew our opinions or empty words.
Yeah, for me, I think the biggest thing with it, and it kind of goes in line, it does go in line with what Hoskins is saying. It's the same thing that I've essentially been communicating to those that have asked me the same question. It first starts off with getting to educating yourself and hearing the stories from minorities. And you've got to educate and figure out what we're going through. There is a lot of ignorance in play, and it's for a lot of people, it's not their fault. They just didn't know. They don't know, and that's just the reality of the situation. They've never been exposed to, they've never faced it themselves. They don't really know anybody because they haven't heard the stories from anybody close to them of all the things that we face. And even as people, as the minorities, oftentimes we may be friends with those that don't face it, and we've been taught we don't speak about these things with white people because they just won't understand it. So we don't feel like we even have the release to be able to say them. But when you give us the release, when you ask us, let me know, and we have these kind of conversations, let me know some of the things that you have faced, because I really have not faced it, and I'd love to know what it is. I think that first it has to start with there. I don't think it should start with, oh, I've seen, and I'm not holding anybody against those that now this is where they've now spoken out. I'm not holding against you, but what I would love for it to come from is not necessarily from what you're seeing now in the news and what's happened with George Floyd and all that, but it comes out of a place where people close to you who you actually care about, and you've seen some of the injustices that they have faced. And so it starts with that education, which then leads to another E for me, which is empathy. And true empathy comes from there. Now you can empathize with what we're talking about, what we're going through. If it now you're in a place of empathy. Now when you actually post, it's not coming from a place of you're just trying, it's the sexy thing, and that's I feel like I need to do it. I'm not saying, again, I'm not going against those that have done that. I understand, and I know your heart's in the right place. But to truly empathize, to recognize this is not just something that's just been happening now recently. This has been going on for years. This is something that a group of people have been dealing with for years. And so now when you do post it, or when you do speak to individual, when you do things that are there to try to help, it's coming from a place more than anything of true empathy for people that you actually know, that's close to you, and that you care about, and that you can actually speak from firsthand experience, not secondary sources that you see but firsthand experience of people that you know and that you're close with, that are going through the same things. And then from out of that place, it's like there's real humility and love that can come out of that. And here's the other thing that I would say, the last thing I would say to this. When it comes to this situation right here, I would say that more than anything, in terms of, for us as a black culture, we want to see change happen. But the change, and this is what I've been telling a lot of my black friends, the change is not necessarily going to come from us speaking out against the injustice. When we as black people speak out against the injustice, it's just a bunch of black people, angry black people, screaming out to a bunch of people that don't really know what we're going through. And so really where the change happens is from those that are not of color, because they now have heard the stories, and they can empathize, that they are now the ones speaking out to the powers that be, and letting the powers that be know that change needs to happen. The sad fact when it comes to the black culture, and this is our fault, this is nobody else's fault, this is our fault. Some of it may play to the fact that we don't think that we can really affect change, but we really can. The sad thing about black culture is we don't vote. A lot of our people don't vote. And so the people that do vote are people that are not of color. And these are the people that are placed in power. These are the individuals that they're trying to please because they keep them in their jobs. And so if people that are not of color are going and knowing that they are the ones that the people that are in political seats, that have power and that have the ability to affect change, if they're hearing the injustices, not from black people, but from the people that they are actually trying to take care of and look after, because the reality is they don't take care of the black culture. A lot of it, again, has to do with the fact that we don't allow our voice to be heard through not voting. It has to come from the white culture, or those that are not of color speaking. And because they know they've heard the stories, they've educated themselves, they know the stories, they empathize with people that are close to them and saying that you guys got to do something different. So that the change needs to come from those that are not of color, speaking out, not just by a post, but actually speaking out to the powers that be, and asking those powers that be for them to have to make change. change within the educational system, change within in terms of police reform, change within the societal oppression within certain areas, within certain communities. All these different things that need to be changed. Why? Because you've now heard the stories, and now you empathize, and you want to see that change. And when you speak to politicians, the power that be, that has so much more weight than any black person could ever have.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, Reem, the only thing I would disagree is that I think that minorities do vote. Actually, you'd find that a high percentage of minorities are voters because of their ability to come to a new country, and then they find the rights and the freedoms, and
Yeah, you're right.
is their ability to vote. I just think that that the powers that be work hard to split our vote.
Yeah.
So it's, you know what I mean? They galvanize all into all one. You know, if you look at, you know, Donald Trump,
Yeah, his whole.
you know what I mean? And then there's a bunch of people that was just spreading hate about Hillary Clinton so that our vote would be, so that the vote would be split amongst a whole bunch of other people, which, you know, anyway. But I would say that, you know, I just wanted to add the fact that, like, you know, this isn't a black and white thing. And this isn't like a minority or person of color versus, I don't know, whatever you might call it, thing. We have to understand that and you mentioned anger earlier, Steve and Chris, but we have to understand that, like, our anger, frustration, and all these things are directed toward racism, not toward the people. And sure, there are players in this, and rightfully so. There are players that need to be held accountable. But for someone who is not a person of color who wants to lend a hand, understand that we're not intrinsically angry at you, but we're possibly angry at the systems that you support inadvertently. And so I would say get in the conversation about it. Final plug for the show is, like, we invite you. This isn't a plug to watch our YouTube channel, but this is more so that, like, if you're not exposed to a lot of black people or minorities and stuff, I would encourage you to watch the show to just get a feel of what it's like to sit around the table, to be a fly on the wall. And I think you might enjoy it. You know, I like, if you don't, you don't, and that's okay. We're not begging for followers per se, but we're saying, like, if this is a time for you to get educated, this is a really easy way for you to be able to do that. That isn't like ESPN or, you know, whatever it might be. So
That being said, we're not begging for followers, but if you are going to follow us, you can follow us on YouTube by searching the House of Commons Show. We are now above the UK Parliament channel. You can search for by House of Commons Show. You can follow us on Twitter at the House of Com1, Instagram House of Commons Show, and you can subscribe to us on YouTube. Like and subscribe to the channel. You don't need to follow, but you should subscribe. It's the right thing to do. You can also follow us on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. We're not begging for it. We're just suggesting strongly that you should do it.
Better every time, man. It's better every time. You're going to wake up like 3 o'clock in the morning telling Becca where to find House of Common.
Becca's going, "Do you love me?" I'm like, "You can subscribe to Apple." My friends outside, are they subscribed to the podcast? With them. Yeah,
The best. So I got one more question for you guys. But how can we as a church be advocates in the long term? Going back to your video, Adam, that you did on your own Instagram, and how, like, this can't be just like a conversation for today, but how is it going to keep going on for tomorrow and the next day and the next day? And how can people be advocates, not just when this conversation is sexy, but how can we be advocates in the long term and in the long run as a church specifically?
So I'll go first with this.
No, I'm gonna jump in. I didn't say anything the last time besides shelling for the show.
You right.
You right.
You go.
I was just gonna say, like, really simply, then I'll pass to Reem. I think a lot of what both the guys said translates into advocacy.
Yeah.
right? Like I think a lot of what they just said. I mean, you could, like, obviously there is, finding resources, and we're really good on our show about making those things available. We're not just like empty heads talking. We always come with stats and figures and ideas and books and things like that. And you can find that even on our own Facebook pages or Instagram. Like you can find things that you can read. But I think a lot of what the guys just said about empathy, about learning, about asking questions, that translates. And really, this is you guys at Mosaic. You guys are that generation that could do that. We could speak to an older generation, and they have a part to play. But you guys are the ones who were at the Black Lives rally, the Black Lives Matter protest this past weekend. You guys are the ones who are walking around university campuses. Well, not right now because of COVID, but that's your life of being in that age group, and it's that age group that's the biggest population in terms of these rallies. So it's not taking your foot off the gas when this is all over. Really, like taking what the guys both said, and then working on that daily, like being kind daily, learning about your own personal biases daily, and surrendering those things to Jesus daily, and then pulling the Samaritan story. Don't just pass by. Don't be the religious priest or the Levite who just kind of like sees it and goes, "Well, I'm busy. It's not my problem." That's a Toronto thing. That's an American thing. That's a cultural thing. That doesn't happen in my town. My town doesn't have any black people, and my town doesn't have any. That's not. I'm not. No. Instead, stop and say, "God, are you checking in my heart right now? Are you checking my spirit right now?" Pick up the one who is broken. Use the privileges that you have been given to give that back to somebody else. Let your stop be someone's start.
Yeah, but for me, I would ground it in. Let's not make this just a black racial thing. Just injustices as a whole. And I know you're not saying. I know you weren't saying that, but I think what helps in terms of answering your question is just injustices as a whole. Constantly having the heart to say, what are the things that are in my society, in this world that that I know grieves the Lord, and what can I do in terms of allowing that to be kind of the driving force behind the change, so that, and this being ongoing, this becomes a lifestyle, so that it's not only when it's popular that you've been speaking to a certain injustice that's going on, but in all things. I would go as far as to say, I was having a conversation with somebody, and in the statement, they're not really for the whole Black Lives Matter thing right now, and that's fine. That's where they're at, because their argument was, well, then, what, that's the injustice with black people, but what about the injustices with indigenous individuals? And I said, you're absolutely right. There's total injustice there. And so this is not just Black Lives Matter. This is any injustice that you see happening in society. And if you hear of it, you can't, like what Chase talked about. It's like the Good Samaritan. You can't, now that you've heard, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
It's one thing to see that my brother is in need or is in hurt, but what am I going to do about it? If I truly love my brother, if the love of the Father lives within me, and I see somebody that is in need and I don't do anything, then what is that saying about where I am in relation to my walk with Christ? It's what I do to the least of these that matters. This whole thing, when it comes to living the gospel out, this is not about us. In North American culture, there's been this distorted view that Christianity, I'm not saying this is everybody, there's a lot of churches where there's a distorted view that Christianity is, you come to follow God so that your life can be great, that you can live the better life now that you have the Lord. But really, and so that's really me focused. But the reality of it is, it's not me focused. When you come to that saving knowledge of Jesus Christ, you now turn away from thinking about what you want to what God wants. And what's best for others who God cares about. And that's the whole thing of love God, then love your neighbor, being the greatest commandments. I love God so much that I'd rather do what pleases him than what anybody else. And what pleases him is that I would love my neighbor like I love myself, that I would do the utmost and do the most just for my neighbor that is in need. And so it's all about having this posture of constant, no matter what the injustice is, but being one who is constantly looking for the one and willing to leave the 99 for the one.
Yeah.
Why? Because that's the heart of the Father, and we know that's a big part of who he is, to the point where Jesus had to tell 3 stories in a row to make sure that these religious folks understood that. Listen, y'all are getting at me right now, but you've totally missed what this is all about. It is about the sick, the lost, the hurting. That's what this is all about. This has nothing to do with trying to look and have the best life. And so again, the answer to your question is that would be the posture just in general. And if you do that to the best abilities, then you're honoring God, because it's not even about honoring us as Black people even, or it's not about honoring those that are in need. It's about honoring God, and that's your posture. And I think that in itself is good enough. You don't have to do anything else.
I have an answer, but it's not very nice. I would say right now this video is being played in front of university students who are taught to critically think. So critically think about it. You're smart people. There's a ton of information out there. And you can use us as the House of Common as a resource. You can contact any one of us. We'd be willing to. But you have leaders among you. You know your context. You know the world in which you sit. Figure out where injustice is going on and get after it.
Yeah.
That's so good. Mean, Adam. That's so mean.
So, oh
what
my
a
goodness.
Mean thing to say.
This is why he's the founder.
Founder, CEO.
The
main financier
of the House of Common, at the House of Common show.
Come on.
Find us on YouTube. Search the House of Common show. You will find us. Once you do find us, please do like and subscribe to our videos and share. Would be amazing. Again, that's the House of Common show.
Thank you so much, Chris, Adam, and Kareem, for having this conversation with me. There's been so much good content in these 2 conversations, and so much that we can take away in our education on this whole topic, and how we can be supportive and advocates in this time. And so I hope you have taken so much from this conversation. As they've plugged so many times, go and follow the House of Common show on YouTube, on wherever you listen to a podcast. Check them out on Instagram, Facebook. There's so many good conversations on this topic and so many others that I would love for you to take in. So make sure you go and join in on those. As Adam said, if you have further conversations, please, as always, I'm here. Reach out to me if you have any questions, anything like that. But as well, the guys are there if you want to send them a message. They're available and ready to have a conversation with you if you need it. So make sure you avail of that as well. We're so thankful that you joined us tonight. Make sure you take in our Mosaic After Party Zoom chats. It's not too late to sign up for that. We're going to start that conversation as soon as I stop talking here now. Have an awesome week. Be a part of our Instagram Live worship on Wednesday night. Go subscribe and give a good rating to our podcast channel. And have an awesome week. And we'll see you next Sunday.